I like this pose of Giant Trapper holding Brainiac 5 like he just picked him out of his nose or something and flicks him away.
Totally insignificant to him. His arrogance means nothing to him. And this is where, of course, we see Brainiac 5 crying a little here, saying that he stole his dream, or dreams. And this is what makes me wonder, like, is he even here for Superboy, or is he just pissed off because he thought he was the genius who figured out how to travel through time, and it turned out he was just being manipulated by the time trapper all this time? So it's like more about his hubris than about his comrade.
Right. I mean, I feel like he had dreams of maybe not being this prideful guy who's the big brains of time travel, but like this guy who could harness the knowledge of the past. And I mean, as a Koluan who, like, those guys want to catalog and know everything, and he had devised a way to know even more than we ever thought we could because he had access to every moment of the past. And then the time trapper turned that upside down, and everything that Brainiac 5 thought he knew about the past could be wrong. It actually seems like it's pretty much on the ball, but time trapper messed that up for him.
Right. I suppose another more charitable interpretation could be related to Supergirl. Sort of disappears along with Superman or Superboy after Crisis.
I think all of those things are more charitable than saying he's just wanted to be the time travel guy and lord it over everybody.
I don't know. I still feel like there's more pointing to his arrogance, but it could be a combination of things.
Yeah, just reading this issue out of the blue, I'm still remembering the nice guy Brainiac 5, even though whatever last week we read issue 250 where he turns out to be a very arrogant, psychotic killer, all that stuff is going to destroy the universe.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe I'm just.
He is going through. I'm not saying he's a full out dick, though. This is a pretty dickish moment here, but I think they do spend a lot of time on him being very disillusioned once he realized that the time trapper was the one really sending them back to Pocket Earth.
Right.
And like earlier in this, Circadium. He asked why they're even grabbing the time cube. Like, he's like, didn't you hear? Like, they don't work. It's all bunk.
Yeah, and I guess they do make Brainiac 5 the most upset by all of that. Because there's that conversation earlier that Ultraman and Timberwolf are having, and they're sort of agnostic about the whole thing, about all that history being incorrect. But yeah, Brainiac 5 is, it's been his scientific, or one of his big scientific endeavors was to crack the time travel.
Kind of his life's work.
But he takes out Brainiac 5 here. He's taken out Mon-El, Saturn Girl, Brainiac 5, and then the next page he's got the next Legionnaire to smash, Duo Damsel. She says, "You killed my first love," referring to Superboy, and I never even told him how I felt. Like, that's still her big plot thing.
Right.
Duo Damsel's with Superboy. I don't know. They need to do a whole issue where Duo Damsel and Bouncing Boy talk it out. You know, like, she still seems like she may be holding a candle for Superboy.
Yeah, she probably wouldn't pass the Bechdel test.
Because all she ever does is talk about Superboy.
I do love the response, love how ephemeral. It's like perfect for the Mr. Entropy, Mr. Eternity there.
I don't quite get what she's trying to do here. She says, "You may have caught one of me, Time Trapper, but let's see if you can hold both." And then she's going to use her powers, which, I mean, it's like the bare minimum, like the absolute. That's all she can do is use her power to split from one person into two. And I don't know what she thinks that will do to the Time Trapper.
Yeah, I used to think that maybe he disintegrated one of the two of them, but if he has her like trapped in a force field and she thinks she can break out by splitting, maybe she just like squashed half of her by doubling in size in that field. Like, did she kill herself basically?
It's really not clear what exactly happens to her other body. It's shown over here that I guess she's, I don't know, imploding or burning up or something. I don't know what action has the sound of fascium, but
Right.
yeah, she's gone, and all that's left is the orange one.
Right.
But yeah, but she's out. She's down.
Yeah.
No more duo damsel.
Exposing a little ass there. There's a hole in her butt cheek.
Oh, like her uniform's burned up.
Right. That got by the comics code. Did this? No, they weren't reprinting by now, right? They didn't. They never made it this far. In Tales, right?
Oh no, they didn't get up to 50. I don't know. I can't remember how far they went, but I'm pretty sure they didn't reprint 50 at all.
Mm-hmm. Maybe like 30 issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it went up to 354 from 314, so they reprinted 40 issues.
Well, I wonder if there was anything in those that they had to change for the newsprint. I mean, they dropped the occasional damn, and I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think so.
What the rules were back then.
I don't think they changed anything. She says, no, not again. I don't know. I think this is kind of a silly dialogue for her to say. They could have left out these word balloons and it would have been maybe more effective.
Right.
Monel, he's back. And he zaps Time Trapper with heat vision. Time Trapper looks kind of cool, kind of inflated with heat here.
Yeah, it's a very non-heroic. I mean, this is about revenge, but yeah, he's screaming die.
Yeah. Well, he gets his attention first over here.
Right.
He's like, "Hey, Trapper, die!"
Knock knock. He's there.
And then, there's just Time Trapper uses the air to beat up Monel.
Right. Right, and it's very reminiscent of, well, not reminiscent because this is first, issue 4 of 5 years later. There's a pretty similar thing happening to Monel where there's like these bamfs, these puffs of.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that again. It almost seems like it's the reverse, right? It's like almost. I wonder if they went back and just did a mirror of it where Monel gets the upper hand on these whatever.
Because it does. There is sort of a like that kind of feels like it's part of this. Like I think you might have mentioned that before. Like it's almost like a sequel in some ways.
Right.
That confrontation. Another scene where that sort of illustrates his infiniteness, I guess. You know, he's talking down to Monel and he says, I would have thought your millennium of imprisonment would have taught you patience. More and more stuff just, I don't know, it just ties to his sense of being like timeless, ageless, like, and he's like, you were almost touching whatever infinite divinity I have, and you still don't understand.
Mm-hmm. And then this is another thing that I'm not quite sure what happened. Monel's here in the foreground. He's all beaten and abused. And then Time Trapper has this white light, I guess, shoots up out of him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure what he's doing exactly. He says, feel entropy reaching for you, Monel. So I guess he's going to use his entropy powers to just rip apart Monel somehow.
He's like amping it up, yeah.
Or he's actually ripping apart everything, isn't he?
Right.
Yeah, because as it goes, it gets more of this white stuff is just he's getting rid of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so Brainiac 5 thinks they're cooked, but Ron Vidar shows up and shoots some green stuff. Ron Vidar is actually a Green Lantern.
I know a lot of people really like him as a Green Lantern. I think the costume is great, but he doesn't really do that much here. Like they present it like he's their ace in the hole. He's like their surprise that turns the tide here, but he gets dispensed with pretty quickly.
He does. He
shields them in the end.
Right.
I guess
that's his major.
That's the most valuable thing he does. But like the entire buildup and setup almost makes you think he's going to be revealed to be like an agent for whatever the opposite of the Time Trapper is, or something like something more directly antithetical to him. But I mean, I think the Time Trapper even says like, "Oh, you're just a Green Lantern. That doesn't mean shit to me."
Right. This page is kind of cool. Like it's some of that stuff that Giffen does, where hidden within the swirls is a bit of a drawing, like
wind or
here's Time Trapper's like his cowl and his face, and there's his hand. I guess this is Brainiac 5 down here. Mm-hmm. And who knows, maybe there's some other stuff that didn't get caught and colored this way. But it looks pretty cool. It kind of looks like, it reminds me of like who drew those Alan Moore Swamp Things? Like they had this look sometimes. John Toddleman stuff. Yeah, Bissett. Not quite like that, but a little bit like that.
Right. A lot of Bernie Wrightson stuff has that look too.
Time Trapper says, "This is the end of time, and I am its master. Look upon it and despair." So I guess this is what the end of time looks like, which it looks kind of cool. I think maybe Giffen had something else in mind for the color treatment on this, because this doesn't exactly look like, I don't know, this isn't what the color of the end of the universe looks like to me. Or the end of time, rather.
I think he was clearly trying to go for like a big, like Jack Kirby style. I mean, he even has like the Kirby dots all over this, but it's kind of weird that it has these muted, almost pastel colors.
Yeah, and I think it's even kind of like, you see this part here seems like it's one planet, but it begins blue and then goes into kind of a dark tan and then a light tan, as if, I'm not sure, like the lighting just isn't quite right in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know. I almost wonder, like, what if like that light lavender and the dark purple were inversed? Would it look better?
It might. Like if this white was against a lot darker color.
Right. And all the Kirby dots were lighter and the background was darker.
Right.
Would everything pop more?
Yeah, it probably would. And I don't know, there's like, you can see sort of like some shapes built into the dots.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if there's supposed to be, I don't know, like jagged lines. Right. Maybe is what he envisioned coming off of these other planets and things.
Mm-hmm. The other thing I kind of wonder is if maybe he intended, another big part of Kirby's work that he kind of takes inspiration from in here is like the collages, the photo collages. Like, did he intend for some of that to be here? I'm not sure. But when Kirby would do scenes like this, he very often would collage photo into it.
Yeah, Giffen just tried to draw it, I guess. Mm. Maybe I'll try and find these and take the color out of them, see what that looks like.
Mm-hmm. Well, like the white here, like, does he have to like give some direction to the colorist or the engravers or whoever to make that white?
I think so. He did that. He would do stuff where he would draw a red line on the original on a vellum overlay or something for the color hold stuff. So maybe that's what he did here, and that's what those white things are.
I don't know. I just wonder if that light lavendery background, if that would be black, even if the Kirby dot stayed purple, but everything else was black. Like, I just think it might look really different. Like maybe a direction got lost or misinterpreted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that like the color holds, the white emanation stuff here, and then the dark purple dots are probably on a separate overlay on the original artwork that he turned in, and then the rest of the stuff that's black line is just black.
Well, here's another question. Like, what are they emanating from? Was that meant to be on the other page where that green planet is? It's about the same size and place. Like, what is everything emanating from there?
See, I thought it was this. I thought this area here is the place that they were standing on, and then Time Trapper used his powers to start to dissolve it, and then this is kind of that effect going out everywhere else. But I'm not sure. I mean, I do this in comics where it's like you just draw a thing, it's abstract thing, and it has an effect in the story. I wish this was colored a little differently, but yeah, as far as like giving us a big picture of the end of time, this is pretty far out. They could have gone a little farther into it though.
Yeah, I mean, it being the only thing on these 2 pages, it communicated to me that something, grand just happened.
Right.
All right.
But Mon-El is still fighting him.
Well, first he shoves the Time Trapper into the sun, and then he goes and grabs a planet, stuffs it on top of him. And I guess it's the last sun in the universe, or this universe. Something about the whole thing reminds me of Pocket Earth, because I think that it only had like one solar system or something. But it's, the end of the entire universe, right?
This thing where Mon-El gets vaporized and the little burn lines, I guess, are kind of colored Caucasian flesh tone, kind of weirdly, kind of a weird experiment.
This feels like it could have been executed a little better, like the color or something. Like, I've read this a bunch of times. I'm not sure I ever noticed his figure was there until we were like dwelling on this page.
Yeah.
And now I see it's really obvious, but
yeah, it almost seems like they should have like let's say this is white hot energy or something, maybe color inside of the Mon-El figure just yellow, or like his I guess it wouldn't be red because he doesn't have his costume anymore, but yeah, just to make it look like a burning up figure instead of this skin tone color.
Right.
He gets whomped. It's
a really intense panel there in the bottom middle. And speaking of like extra balloons, I almost wonder if they said you need to put something there indicating that he's still alive, because he looks dead there with his eyes rolled back like that.
He basically is dead, right? Like he never comes back again in this series, I don't think.
No. Yes, no. I mean, we see more of him, but we never see him back up and about.
Yeah, he's kind of on life support with like Shadow Lass flying around.
Right, trying to find help for him. And then he makes like he made like an instantaneous recovery in 4 or something. Like he was still like in a coma or still messed up at the beginning of that, I think. And then he just like jumped up.
Yeah, in that issue they have this kind of weird
Did Glorith do it or something? Like she wished him into health or something?
I don't remember. I remember that there's like they have like word balloons that are just in the void, and it's either people speaking about Mon-El or it's Mon-El himself. And there's that character Eltrogand, who is his cousin that gave up his life so that Mon-El could live or something like that.
Oh, right.
And yeah, I think you're right. I think that happens, and then he just kind of sits up in bed and he's back.
Right.
But I think it must have something to do with I don't know, some kind of magic stuff that's happening or something, right?
Right,
It's
right,
it's before the Mordru verse issue, so it's not because of that. I just don't remember. Even though I've read that issue maybe more times than any of the
right.
others.
It's funny when you start thinking about this stuff really at all, but start thinking about it hard and all the silliness in it. Like, she can't seem to get any help anywhere with all the greatest doctors in the universe. And she knows all these magic characters. Like, why don't you see if White Witch can do something? I mean, these Superman light characters are all vulnerable to magic or whatever.
I think after this issue, you didn't see White Witch again for a long time either.
Was she not in the Magic Wars?
I think she came back like halfway through.
Right.
I don't think she was a big player in that.
Right. The other thing is, it never even comes up to maybe throw him back into the Phantom Zone. At the end of this series, it's implied that he dies somewhere in one of the last couple issues. Like, they show like his life stat thing flatlining.
I don't remember that, but I wouldn't be surprised.
It was a good cliffhanger.
Yeah, I mean, if Giffen had plans for him, he probably wouldn't have actually killed him, but maybe, yeah, done a cliffhanger type of scenario.
Right.
So all the big guys are taken out except Brainiac 5. And so he's having, I guess, just a intellectual tete-a-tete with Brainiac 5.
Does it make sense? He says, it's your arrogance that first tested the power of time, my power. And he says, not tested, Trapper, broke it. I traveled through time. And he's basically like, whatever, if you say so.
Mm-hmm.
So did he or did he not?
I think he didn't. I think he didn't travel through. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he traveled through time, but it was fake time that Time Trapper invented.
Right.
But I guess Brainiac 5 thinks he can still travel through the real time without the Time Trapper. Even if Time Trapper is not in the way, he thinks he could still do it.
Well, we know at least one Legionnaire has legit traveled through time, and that's other than Superman. Cosmic Boy and Night Girl because they went back to, the real Earth.
Right. I'd have to check back. Is there an explanation for why they were able to go back to the actual 20th century?
I do not remember what it was.
Was that after Death of Superboy, maybe?
No, I think it was right before, because that's when they were first establishing that they were not the same guy. Because
like Cosmic Boy's confused. He's like, "Who is this Superman dude? He doesn't recognize me," etc.
Right, and they're looking in the papers or in the library or something, and they realize there's no Superboy.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be a book of this collected so we can understand what's going on with the Time Trapper and see this build up.
Surely it's next in line, right?
I doubt it. It doesn't seem like they've collected any of this. Like, none of this Baxter stuff has been reprinted except maybe the Death of Superboy or something. I don't know.
No, I don't think they've ever done that.
Haven't they?
Well,
like in the reprint of the John Byrne stuff.
Yeah, in that it has been. They have. I'm pretty sure they collected like that first arc, the supervillain arc with the Giffen drew the first part of Karate Kid Dies.
Yeah, I think they did. You're right. Yeah.
But the 5 years later stuff, they just did it all in 2 books. I bet they'll do the exact same thing with this.
Oh, maybe. This stuff is just not as good as the 5 years later, though.
Right.
And I don't think it has the same following. Like, they say that in the years since 5 years later came out, like, people even outside of Legion fandom kind of appreciate it. And so I could maybe see that as some kind of selling point for it. Whereas the Volume 3 Baxter series is only appeals to Legion readers. Except maybe the Death of Superboy if you like the Superman mythos a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine anybody really liking most of this series, the third volume. It's a really pretty bad series in general, in my opinion. And as I know the marketing department at DC.
Yeah, not a lot happens. But, I think part of the reason things seem so eventful now all of a sudden is because Paul's decided to leave. He's not just like treading water. He's like, I've got a few things I want to take care of before I go. So
Yeah, you're probably right. Like the combination of him trying to wrap up stuff and then just like the density that Giffen deals in when he plots
right,
stuff out.
right.
Yeah, could make for some juicier stuff. But this
Mm-hmm.
one has a lot going on, and I think as the final months of the series wear on, like a little bit less starts to happen. They're not as exciting as this one.
What really hurts him is that last arc, Magic Wars, because I don't remember what the reason was. Maybe it seems like he probably took on too much, but the artwork really suffered there towards the end. Like it was rushed.
The last couple or the last one, yeah, it's like Al Gordon comes on, but then he
Mm-hmm.
leaves again. Like they must be trying to get number one of the next series
Right.
really in shape or something.
Yeah, and it looks like he's more of a breakdown guy at that point. Like the
Mm-hmm.
inker is doing most of the heavy lifting by that point, and yeah, it could be because they were getting ready for the new series,
Yeah,
or who like he always has like 3 books at once, so who knows.
right.
That, by the way, is something I've seen him like in that Legion Companion. Like that's the thing he wishes he could go back and change is those last few issues. If he could go back in time and do something different, he wished he could put more into the drawings of those last few issues
Fix up the Magic Wars, huh?
of the Magic Wars. Yeah.
Time Trapper says, "Look about you. This is the only absolute truth in eternity. The end." And Brainiac 5 has the hubris to say, "Ha!"
Yeah, that's
And
great.
this is a pretty cool page where
Mm-hmm.
Time Trapper yells, "You dare!" And he knocks over Brainiac 5.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of
Very Harvey Kurtzman-y.
yeah, yeah, you're right. But also, this is Giffen has done stuff like this before, where I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, it's almost ambush bug kind of
Right, right.
extremeness.
Yeah, it's a very weird juxtaposition. Like this is about as serious as superhero comics get, and then it's got the kind of silly lettering.
Right. Yeah, very cartoony. And I guess he just starts turning the world upside down
Mm-hmm.
in annoyance. And here's some more of this cool Giffen blast stuff where you can
Oh
see the
yeah,
time trapper sort of built into it.
yeah. Works better here, I think, than
Yeah, they kind of
the few
figured it out
pages
on this one.
previous. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I wonder if maybe there's some time trapper in here that we didn't notice in the coloring or something.
Oh yeah. I guess that could be like is that what like the black there in the center is that like the dark part of his like where his face would be?
Yeah, maybe like right here, and maybe there's some hands or
Yeah, I
something
see. I think I see the
like
hands.
this same idea.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess all you need is really this one. Brainiac 5 is like, "You're right. I'm sorry."
Mm-hmm. With green blood.
And while yeah, they're talking, Brainiac 5 pushes a button on his belt, and guess who shows up? Infinite Man. And this is about the coolest he's looked, I guess. Um, he's got this crazy look on his face.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool Starfield, deep shadows on his costume. I mean, that's always been there,
Mm-hmm.
but they've done a good job here. I guess somebody got their toothbrush out.
Maybe it's the Maguire influence there, but it looks to me it reminds me of like Stuart Inman's drawing.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Oh, like I don't know, like the shadows kind of feather out and disappear into the white. I think is yeah, it's kind of like Maguire and Eminem both kind of do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Mike DeCarlo does a good job of inking that kind of stuff. He's real
Mm-hmm.
brushy. And yeah, now here's
Mm-hmm.
a new juxtaposition where Infinite Man, he's actually towering over Time Trapper now, since we're talking about giant guys. But then Time Trapper flips it around
Right.
and he pulls up Infinite Man out of the dirt.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a real clash of the titans here.
Yeah. That's really great.
And Yeah, speaking of the Kirby collage stuff, he's actually done it in this.
That's what was making me wonder if he intended it earlier, but
it's a collage of photographs.
Is that Eisenhower, or what are we looking at there?
I think it is. I think it's Ike, and it's the sculpture of the guy throwing the disc. And I can't
like
really...
a biplane or something up there.
Oh yeah,
it says F90.
Yeah, I can't really make out the rest. This is maybe is that a train? I don't know. There's
or subway.
Just a bunch of stuff. That's for the Infinite Man's power, and then the power of dust and decay is for Time Trapper on this side of the page. And here's more of this Giffen blast. They've got the Infinite Man shows up pretty well. The Time Trapper panel is not as effective. And in fact, this next one, the color is off too. Like there's two characters speaking in the midst of the battle. It's Brainiac 5 and
I see them. I see them now.
Well, they've colored this blob here as if it's the other person in the scene, but actually he's here. This is his head and torso.
Yeah, until you mentioned that, I'd never even seen those two figures. I just thought this was like from a distance, and all we're seeing is like some indescript mountains.
Yeah.
And realize it was closer in, and the two figures are getting up.
Right. I don't know. I wish Giffen would give the colorist a memo when he's doing this stuff.
Right.
Because it would make the
Just
comic...
imagine whoever had to color his trencher work.
Yeah. Well, even that was more clear, I think, than some of these things. This is a really, really bad instance I noticed last time I read it. It's like, oh, that Ron Vidar is here, and he's just colored brown. You can't even tell. You're led to think that this is the other person who's speaking or something. But yeah, this is where Ron Vidar winds up catching everybody in the middle of their big battle. This is kind of crazy colors. I don't know if this is if your art teacher would approve of this color mixture.
The orange or the red and green.
Yeah, red, green, and purple.
It looks much better on the page than the digital one, because it's a little desaturated in my copy of it. So they don't clash quite as bad, but they're very bright and loud on the digital page.
I bet all of this stuff looks really bad in the digital version, like this, like this stuff that's a cyan surprint looks like total ass, I'm sure. And this one,
the photo, maybe the collages might look a little better. They might stand out a little more, I guess. But I don't know. Overall, yeah.
This is kind of a weird thing where Ron Vidar is like, it's the beginning of time, but the Guardians warned us that was never to be seen. Which is, it's in all the, what's it called? History of the DC universe and all that stuff where they show the big hand holding up Earth as the beginning of time. And then, I don't know it's like the eating the forbidden fruit or something.
Yeah.
The DC universe of the Bible story of eating the forbidden fruit.
Right. You'll become comatose or something if you see it.
Yeah.
Like looking at infinity or something.
Well, didn't it open Pandora's box and get evil into the universe or something when they did that? When whoever it was, Krona, is that who it was? Krona, in his hubris, looked back at the beginning of the universe, and the Guardians were pissed, and I don't know. It's something like that.
That's it. I think I've read a little bit of that in the Who's Who, but I haven't actually read the history of the DC universe.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure it's in that, but it may be also like taken from another story, another Green Lantern comic. I don't remember.
Well, it kind of sounds like it was taken from something older, but like it sounds mythological a little bit.
But it's like this sci-fi thing where this guy's looking at a big giant computer screen of the beginning of the universe. It's kind of cool. I mean, it made an impression. I still remember it, and I've only read that that thing one time when I was a kid. So, but Brainiac 5 uses his force field belt to push the Infinite Man right through Time Trapper's time barrier. And Infinite Man calls back. He's like, "Thank you, Brainiac 5, for this. I forgive you for my birth and damnation."
Yet another sort of nail in the coffin, or another flaw in the upcoming story. The next like year of books is about like him going on trial for using this guy and killing him. But here he is unambiguously saying it's okay. The other weird thing is right before they left, I meant to mention it. Like Polar Boy seems totally cool with them, confiscating that guy's body to use. Like, because he's the one who pisses White Witch off, and she takes off, and she's like, "I don't see the big deal." In the next issue, he's like, "You killed somebody."
Right. He's on the cover, and he's like pointing at him. He's like, "This is a trial of Brainiac 5."
Right. Whatever. You're just pissed they left without you.
I was just wondering if like Giffen forgot that was the characterization that he wrote himself for that sequence. It's kind of strange.
I don't know. Also, this issue plays a lot with white space, like I guess representing nothingness.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have like that encroaching whiteness that was going on when he was bringing about his entropy force to like destroy Mon-El, and then we have the is it like one page before this with like there's only 3 panels and they're each getting slightly smaller.
Oh yeah.
And he ends up using like white space quite a bit, especially once the universe starts rebooting and temporarily freezing and ending, and there's lots of like blank white panels.
Yeah, they cribbed this for 0 Hour.
Oh, right.
Like that, and they had to have just been following Giffen's lead, because this is what happens in this issue, and then it happens in the issue 4 when Mon-El kills him, and it's what they do in the issue of the 5 Years Later's Volume 4 series when they're coming up to 0 Hour. I guess that's
right.
But in the actual 0 Hour mini series too, I think they use that trope.
Yeah.
Of like it's kind of fading into total
That's
whiteness.
Right. And like all the tie-in issues ended that way. They all faded into white.
Right.
Almost exactly like that last page where he's like, "This ends now," and he's like not, giving the time trapper his fatal blow.
Right. That's how that issue ends. That's really crazy. Mm-hmm. Like it goes white, and then that's there's the letters page, I guess, and then that's the end of the issue. And that's about what this is too.
Right.
The Legionnaires. Yeah, I guess the Infinite Man has done whatever he did to get rid of Time Trapper. Mm-hmm. And the Legionnaires, they're in this sort of metaphorical flowing river of time going into the Time Trapper's face.
Yeah, that's a great effect.
Yeah. But they're also kind of like being flushed down the toilet.
Right. It's like that car. It's like that Cars video where Rick Ocasek takes his face off and like all the water flows out.
Right.
With all the little people in there.
And then there's a lot of silly sound effects. There's a zoom. There's a scream. There's a phased. And here they are. They're traveling through time again, like we've seen before and after.
Mm-hmm.
Phased and then plop, and they're back at Legion headquarters.
Another silly sound effect.
And you can see how wrecked Saturn Girl got when she tried to read the Time Trapper's mind and it blew up her head. She's in bad shape.
Oh, I never put 2 and 2 together there. You think that's a direct effect of that?
Well, that's the last time you saw her, it looked like her head was on fire.
Right. Something that stands out to me that I think is really good in this is like how tough she is about this. Here she is bald, and she's indifferent to it because she's like, a warrior or whatever.
I thought it was actually kind of cold. She's like only 4.5 of us returned alive, but it's worth it.
Right. Yeah.
What? I don't give a crap if one of Duodamsel's stupid bodies got killed. Whatever. It was worth it.
I agree with that line.
And Brainiac 5 says, "We destroyed him. I know we did." Oh, and here's another little like correction. You can see that when he calls her Imra, it's a different letterer. So for some reason there was a correction here of him addressing her.
You see that?
It's totally different lettering. And I'm sure there were other ones that I overlooked, but I just happened to notice this one. And I don't know what he might have called her instead. Like there wasn't room for it to be Saturn Girl, and they whited it out. But yeah, it's totally a different hand did this Imra. And I can't quite figure out why. Like, did he call her Babe instead or something?
It being spelled wrong or using the wrong name seems like a pretty good guess. Like, did he call her Loranu or something, you know?
He could have called her Irma, and they might have had to fix that.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a very easy mistake for a letterer to make. So now they're just back showing, I guess, the end of time and how it's still kind of complete and messed up, but there's just a cloak of Time Trapper remains.
Mm-hmm. You know, by the time I read this, I already knew he'd be back. I had already been reading 5 years later before I had read this, so I never thought that he was ever dead forever. But it's weird, like nothing ever comes of him no longer existing. Like they never try to. The iron well of time is gone. They could go further ahead, or the limitations he was putting on them were no longer there, right?
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, I don't think they even really tried time travel very much after this. I think maybe they just felt like I don't know, like Circadius Ennius has his work cut out for him now to correct all that misinformation they had.
You could almost see that as a way of like reinvigorating the series for a while, because now they've got to figure out what really happened in the past.
I vaguely remember them talking about that just in passing, but yeah, I don't think they.
There's also just kind of the weird incongruity in that we've elevated him from like a very powerful but mortal villain to like the physical manifestation of entropy. So what happens when you kill entropy? Like, do things not break down anymore? Do people stop dying? Like,
yeah, I mean, obviously he's not that. He's just some kind of puppet master type of figure who has ultimate control over that. And now he's dead, so I think it just is nature taking its course or something. Must be the thinking there.
I guess. Or when he does turn up alive, it's like, did you really think you could kill entropy? Maybe that is how he came back. I don't remember. I mean, I doubt many people read this were convinced this was the last we'd ever see of him.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, it does seem pretty final, except they show his cloak there. And I mean, it's a good enough issue that you could not go back to Time Trapper again, and it would probably be okay.
Right. Well, yeah, I guess what I was saying, yeah, he sort of straddles between being like a powerful villain and like this force in the universe. Why would you play up the force in the universe part of it if you were going to kill him? Because then it's like you just killed death or something.
I guess I think of it as him being an evil manipulating force and not actually the force.
It does make sense, but then he's sort of boasting or exaggerating or lying about what he is, because he seems to be kind of saying over and over again that, you know, he is entropy. Which, you know, supervillains lie and exaggerate all the time. I'm trying to remember how he came back. Like, he was trapped inside of Mon-El or something. like a fragment of his being was in his mind or something. Like
That's right. That there was. I remember they're looking at his little life force monitor,
mm-hmm.
and they are like, "We detect two life forces still in him." And actually, there's a third one, and the third one is that Eltro guy, Monel's
Right.
cousin.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, yeah, the second one's Time Trapper. And then, but Monel wakes up and somehow gets zapped back to the end of time here, and he meets Time Trapper in a very weakened state.
Right.
And I guess I don't really remember the explanation for any of that. There must be some kind of explanation, but it would just work as a coda for this issue in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you were to read this and then like imagine that some years pass and then read that issue number 4
Mm-hmm.
as like the real finale, the real final death of Time Trapper.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could look at it that way. Like there's still this loose end of a little bit of Time Trapper essence living inside of Monel, and Monel
Mm-hmm.
comes out of his coma and wipes him out.
Yeah. And everything else.
Right.
Well, that's it, right?
Pretty good comic. That's it.
Yeah, definitely one of the best.
Legion number 50. And the Legion will never be the same.